Hey everyone, it's Tango Oscar Mike, and I wanted to talk about tying knots. I saw a video that Kyle did, uh, Alpha Alpha Zero Z, and Frank the Tank did too. They both bought these things called rope rollers at the Overland export they were at, and I don't want to put them down for buying those. I know it's a matter of convenience, but I want to not discourage you from buying those, but I want to encourage you in learning how to tie knots. And with a couple of knots, you can do everything that rope roller can do. I also thought those rope rollers were a little overpriced. I know they got a deal on them because they were at the Overland Expo and everything else. But there's other companies that make almost the exact same thing. They might not be stainless steel, but you can get those cheaper. They might not last as long, but they're a lot cheaper. But you can do the problem with those, and I have bought those in the past. I'm not going to lie. I've used stuff like that in the past before I knew how to tie some knots and really put some effort into it, which is about the same time I became a ham because I was constantly trying to put antennas up and constantly fighting with paracord, tying knots and everything. So I started to study a couple of different knots, and I've learned a lot since then. But I want to give that information to you. In the description of this video, I'll put a link to a playlist I put together of some of the essential knots that if you just go through those and practice those knots, it'll make a big difference. I keep this piece of paracord, actually this actual one, on my desk. It's always on my desk, and I'll use the handle on a filing cabinet next to me to practice tying some knots. And I actually have a list of the knots, and I'll go through and practice tying those knots just to keep practice. And since I started tying knots, I've become interested in not just the basic knots, but even some more advanced knots. And I think it's just fascinating, and it's kind of a mechanical thing knowing how knots work. But it's pretty cool, and I've used it. I was at Home Depot one time, and there was a woman with a pickup truck, and she was trying to tie down some boards in the back of the truck. And she had some string, the Home Depot string, and she was just kind of like wrapping it around the boards. And I offered to help, tie it down, and she was reluctant, and but she did let me help her, and I tied them down, and hopefully made them more secure than just tying a bunch of knots, which is what they say: if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. But I'd rather know how to tie a knot. So I'm gonna talk about a couple of knots. I'm not going to show you really how to tie them. There's other videos that are much better and will be much clearer for that, and much shorter that you can just watch and do that. Well, that'll be in the description. But I want to show you a little bit why the application of those knots and where you might use them in ham radio. So the first knot is a bowline, and a bowline is a non-constricting loop. And I'm just tying it real quick here. Again, go watch one of the videos I have in the playlist on how to tie a bowline. So this is a bowline. You can use this to drop over something, over a post, and hold the end of a rope, over a tent stake. If you take your dog with you and you forget a leash for your dog, you can use a bowline because it doesn't constrict. If you use something like a slipper knot and tie it around your dog's neck and you pull on it and it constricts, you could choke your dog. This is the same kind of knot you would use in a piece of rope if you wanted to put around somebody's chest to lower them down or something if they were stuck or injured. But that is the bowline, or bowline. I've heard it pronounced both ways. And the reason why you tie knots and you learn how to tie knots is if you just tie a bunch of stuff on here, you might never get it back out. And that was what was happening to me when I first started putting up antennas. I'd always have knots and I could never get them out again. So I'd have to use like a pair of needle nose or something to pull it out, or like half rip your fingernail off. With all these knots, they're very easy to get back out. The bowline, even though you can pull on it and really make it tight, if you just take the rope, the ends, and wiggle it, you can get it out. Which is why they really don't use this knot for like rock climbing or something like that. Because if you wiggle it, if it's not under tension and it wiggles a lot, it can come out. So, but for other things, it's fantastic. You can put it around a tree and tie it the same way I just did there in the air. And, you know, it works great for anchoring a piece of rope. The other knot is called a trucker's hitch or truckee hitch. And it is used to put tension on a piece of rope. So one end of the rope is anchored somewhere, and then you have the other end of the rope. Say you're putting up an antenna and you want to guy it very well. This end might be up on your antenna. This end you would tie a trucker's hitch in. And basically what a trucker's hitch does, let me see if I can show you real quick here. Let me step on this piece of rope here. So a trucker's hitch, say I wanted to pull this tight. There's a couple of knots you can use. Another knot is a Taunt-line. And a Taunt-line puts a little knot on the rope that you can slide up and down. And again, put pressure on the rope. That's great for tent guy lines. But if you really want to crank down and like secure a load on a vehicle, or really, you know, you have a mast up in the air and you really want to crank down and make it tight, or something like that, you would use a trucker's hitch. And with a trucker's hitch, what you do is you make a loop in the rope. Again, go watch a video on it. This loops around whatever object you're trying to tie to, you're anchoring to. And then what you do, and this is exactly how you tie a bowline as well. And then what you do as you pull, it creates this 2-to-1. It's not a true 2-to-1 advantage, but it's pretty good. But you pull on this loose end, on your tag end, and you can really apply a lot of force and really tighten this rope up and really cinch it down. It makes a big difference. And then when you're done, it's easy to come out. You pull it and it's gone. So that's another knot. Now, for me, a knot I use a lot too is a sheet bend. So say this is my throw line for throwing my beanbag, my lead shot beanbag, up over a tree. That is a plastic rope and it's very slippery. It's designed to glide through the tree limbs and not get snagged like paracord can. Paracord can get snagged on tree bark, that kind of stuff. So that throw line is very slippery. But then I want to permanently put another type of rope up there. Typically I would use Dacron or mass strength guy rope to do that. But to tie the two ends together, you use a sheet bend. And with a sheet bend, you simply fold a loop over, put this up through the middle, go around the back, and then where it came up, you have that little loop, you slip it underneath there, and you pull it tight. And it's a very simple knot, but it's extremely strong. That's not going to come loose as I'm pulling up through the tree. The knot's real small, so it helps it glide a little bit better. But then once you're done, again, you wiggle this a little bit, pull on it, and it comes right back out. And this works with different sized pieces of rope. If this was a large piece of rope and this was a small piece of rope, it would still work. And that's the other thing with those rope rollers. If you rely on those for all your knots, if you need to tie a larger piece of string or a smaller piece of string, the rope rollers are designed to work with 3mm cord, which is paracord. If it's smaller than that, they may not grip properly, and if it's bigger than that, they don't fit into the roller. So learning how to tie a knot, these knots all work with larger and smaller pieces of string, rope, etc. So tying knots is a good skill to have. There's a knot called a Siberian Hitch, which is a very quick way to tie something off to a tree with a quick release cord on it, so it yanks and lets go very quickly. What else? There is the Taunt-line, which I mentioned again. That's for tensioning things, usually like on a tent line, or if you're putting up a short mast in the yard, you can leave a Taunt-line hitch on the rope, loop it around your tent stake, and then just slip it and make it tighter so you can tighten down or loosen your antenna. There's a butterfly knot, which allows you to put a loop in a piece of rope. So it's basically called a midline knot. So now that lets you attach things midway on the rope securely. That's a butterfly knot. That's in the list as well. There's a half hitch, which is a quick way to tie off the end of a rope to something. That's very useful. If you've ever seen old westerns when the guy goes up to the hitch post and wraps the horse rope around it, they're tying a half hitch to keep the horse from pulling it away from that post and getting away. But it's very good for anchoring things to an object quickly if you just need to tie something off very quickly. You know, there's lots of uses. A lot of these knots do the same thing, just in a different way. Like the Bowline, the Siberian Hitch, the half hitch, all those just tie off to something. And depending on what you're doing, you know, you may choose to use certain ones. But I think the Bowline is going to be your main one for most instances. If I could just pick 3 knots, I would say the Bowline, the trucker's hitch, and the sheet bend are the main ones I would use. And then the Taunt-line, the butterfly, the half hitch, those ones are just bonuses. And once you learn one, it becomes easier to learn the others. So, okay, this is kind of cheesy, but I'm going to do it. I have the other end of this piece of paracord tied off to my picnic table there, and pretend this is a tree that I want to tie my rope off to. And as you can see, I have a lot of rope left over that I don't need. And I don't want to I'm sure we've all done this, where you take the rope and you just wrap it around a half a dozen times with all the excess slack, or you take it around and try to tie some knot on it that comes loose. This is where the trucker's hitch shines, is for putting tension and making a quick knot. So for the trucker's hitch, you make a loop in the rope, fold it down and take it, and then you pull and make this little loop. This is just like a little slip knot. So then what you do is you take your super long piece of rope and you just take a piece of it and go around the object you're trying to tie to, push it through that other loop that you made, and then you can pull this tight. And as I pull this tight, you might be able to see it's really easy to put a lot of tension on this. So I have a ton of tension on this, and depending on where I put the knot, I can pull it tighter or tighter. And then all you have to do to tie it off is you pinch it near at the knot where those 2 loops meet, put this around the rope, pull it up through the loop, and pull it tight. And then it's tied off, and it didn't lose any of the tension in that knot while I was doing it. I still have tons of tension on this cord. Now you could use this to secure a load, like you were strapping this down across the bed of your pickup truck or the roof of your car. You could use it as a ridge line for a tarp shelter. It works in all those situations really well. And to take it off, again, it's one of those knots where it's just so easy to pull it back off. Pull that out, I'm left with this, and I'm gone. I'm not spending a lot of time here doing this. The Siberian Hitch is a quick release knot, so if you needed to tie something off quickly, one end, but you knew you weren't going to be there very long and was going to be going away, again, it's a very quick knot. A couple of wraps around the hand, loop, pull it tight, and it creates this constricting knot that tightens down. And I can pull on this and it's not going to come loose. but if I pull on this tag end, it's loose and I'm gone. So that's in the list as well, the Siberian hitch. The half hitch, I'll do it over this way. Again, it's another knot, it's just another way to tie something off quickly. I don't use it in this method very often. Usually I'll use a bowline or something else. What I use it for is when I'm attaching a rope to a tent stake to guy a mast or something like that, and I don't need tension on it. Maybe I'm putting it down the first ones, and I don't need tension on it. When I put up my mast, I put 2 guy lines in the ground, and then I stand the mast up, and I use the third to hold it in place. So what I'll do is you can tie a half hitch like this, just cross these over, and then I'll slip this over the tent post, wiggle it down, and then that ties off to a tent post. And again, it's another knot that's easy to come out. Coincidentally, if you learn how to do that, then you can learn how to do this. Put these through together. And this is a handcuff knot, and it's very useful for those you know, people want to invade your POTA space, your POTA working space. So but there's lots of knots and lots of things you can do. The rope rulers, like I said, they're kind of expensive. You can find something very similar at Home Depot for like, I think it's $7 or $8 for 2 of them. The rope rulers online are $15 a piece if you buy one, and that's without rope, without some type of cordage. For 6, I think it was 42, and for 8 or 12, I think it was 80 some dollars. Again, they only work with paracord sized cordage, and in my opinion, either you never have enough of them, and you always need one more. Like you get them, they're real convenient, you use them, either you lose one, or you find out you just need another one. And those, like I said, I don't want to discourage anybody, and I'm not putting Kyle or Frank down. They can be very convenient for specific uses, but in my opinion, I think value tying a knot, learning how to tie a couple of these knots is much better. YouTube has tons of resources. If you search for any of these knots on YouTube, you're going to find hundreds of videos and different ways to tie all these knots. But go watch them. Again, there's a playlist in descriptions that have very YouTube shorts for tying a lot of these knots, and they're very well. You could very well lit, right pace, and you can kind of watch and go through it multiple times and learn how to tie all these knots. So, and hang on one second. Let me get the other end of this. So this piece of paracord that I have been doing this demonstration on is typically about the length I like to cut my paracord. I might go a little longer, maybe 20-25 feet, but 15 feet to me usually is about the right length for most things. And if I need to extend it, then I can use that sheet bend to tie 2 of them together very easily and make a longer piece of paracord. That's my opinion. But storing paracord, I know people like to you can wrap it up and do all that other kind of stuff, like they sell paracord winders and everything else. You've seen the figure 8 method for wrapping antennas up. It's the same thing for paracord. It's actually easier with paracord. I pinch a piece of it through my fingers, spread my other fingers out, and then I just wrap in a figure 8. Again, this is 15 feet of paracord. And as you can see, I can fit several more feet if I wanted to. And then when I'm left with a piece about yay long, I pinch this, take it off my hand, take the end, wrap over itself to pinch it off, wrap it around a few times. Doesn't have to be pretty. And then with the last little bit, I take it, tuck it underneath the last loop, and pull it tight. And this is how I carry the paracord in all my packs. And then when you need it, all you do is hold this and pull this tag end again, and it just comes out. No knots, nothing. Super quick. I do this all the time. Every time, you'll never see me ball up paracord and throw it in my pocket or throw it in a bag, because it's just so quick to do this, and it makes it so convenient for the next time when you need that piece of paracord again. And this is faster than any winder that you would ever have. Done. And if you look at all my Go kits and Go packs, you'll find a bunch of short pieces of paracord. The only time I do have one piece of paracord that's a bit longer, but again, I can wrap almost 30 feet on my hand before it gets cumbersome. But I found that 15 feet is usually the longest I use. I think I have a 30-foot one that I use for a tarp ridgeline. But that's it. That's what I have on knots. Again, not to put those guys, not to put Kyle or Frank down. Those rope rollers can be extremely convenient, but I highly recommend keeping a piece of paracord on your desk and practicing knots. It's easier to learn how to tie knots than it is to learn how to do Morse code. I'll tell you that. And you can use these in so many different functions of your life. When you need to tie something off, it becomes extremely handy. And like I said, once you learn a couple of knots, you'll get interested in learning how to tie other knots and how to use them every day. I almost always have some paracord on me. I often will carry a little piece in my pocket, and I will get bored sometimes and actually fidget with a piece of paracord. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope this video was useful. Go get yourself some paracord. This is Tango Oscar Mike saying 73. Take care. I didn't realize Augie was behind me the whole time inside waiting. He just ate, and we make him wait a little bit before we let him out, because if he goes running right after he eats, he'll end up throwing it up. So he's waiting patiently at the door, so I'm gonna let him out. Come on, bud. So